Welcome to Taking the Higher Road, a DriverReach and FreightWaves production. I'm your host, Jeremy Reymer, founder and CEO of DriverReach, a modern recruiting and compliance software solution. On this show, I interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver lifecycle as we discuss the industry's greatest challenges, driver recruiting, retention, and compliance. I appreciate all the positive feedback on the show. Please remember to rate and review Taking the Higher Road, whatever platform you use to listen. This week, I'm honored to be joined by a fellow Jeremy, the Chief Administration Officer of Nussbaum Transportation, Jeremy Stickling. Thank you for joining me, and cool name, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's mutual, I'm sure. So thrilled to be on here, Jeremy.
So, well, I'm excited to get into, talking about your career, how you got into the industry, your dedication to creating an award-winning culture at Nussbaum. Hopefully you can shed some light on your involvement with TCA and how that's helped you in the company. I'd certainly like to learn more about Nussbaum being an ESOP, right? Because you're the second company that I've talked to recently who's created that structure, and it's intriguing. So, and then I want to make sure we have time for a question from a listener during our deeper dive segment. Does that all work for you?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, before we dive in, as is the custom, I'm curious if you have any book, recommendations for the audience, anything you've read recently that was impactful.
Yeah, well, over my shoulder here, it kind of goes in fits and starts. I get real motivated, knock out a whole bunch, and then my 2023 book total is a 1.5, regrettably. But if I had to pick a recent favorite, I'm going to do this. Working Genius. It's Patrick Lencioni. It's backwards here, but we're pretty big Lencioni fans around here, and this is tied actually to an assessment. It's $25 assessment. Sound like I'm doing an infomercial, but we really like it. It talks about what energizes you at work, and you have a team of people, and it's going to vary. Some are going to be wanting to work on the ideation side, thinking about new things. Some are just want to say, tell me what to do and I'll execute it for you. And it kind of gives insight to that. So there's a lot of Nussbaum folks that have been tied into this topic recently. So we have fun with that stuff.
Yeah, I like that. And so did you do that like from a leadership standpoint or across the company, people getting in the assessment?
So this one has been company wide. Actually, it's not everybody, but I'm going to just make a guess. 85% of the company probably has done a Working Genius assessment by now.
That's really cool.
Every team had their 6 geniuses. For those who have gone over this, I'm an IT, invention, tenacity. And I'm frustrated by a W, a big wonderer, and an E, enablement, which means if you have an idea and you want my help, don't ask me because I could be a jerk about it. I don't know, so, but we've done that across the teams, and it's been a good practical tool for us.
Well, that's really cool. Thanks for that suggestion. I'm familiar with Patrick Lencioni, but not that particular book or that assessment. So hopefully some of the leaders, the viewers here will also find that interesting. So let's get into your background a little bit. How did you find yourself into the trucking industry?
Well, how did I get into trucking? Ever since I was 4, no, I'm kidding. That's actually not my story at all. I think it's kind of interesting because it's graduation season and everybody's like, set your goal, set your dream, go and hit it. You can be what you want. I wonder how many people actually say, this is what I'm going to go do, and actually go hit it. So this is my claim to fame, Jeremy. Most of my jobs, my mom helped me get through her network. Isn't that's pulled myself up by my bootstraps and my mom helped me out. I mean, that's my story. So, there was some family friends that worked here, and they asked about me, and I ended up in trucking, and it gets into your blood from there. Mm-hmm. I would have a hard time seeing myself do anything different or be in any different industry at this point. It really does get in your blood, but it didn't start there, if I'm being honest. So,
yeah, well, it's funny that you say that because it does. It gets in your blood if you let it, right? Because you could be resistant and you probably wouldn't last very long. You might have been there a year or two and then just done something else, and you'd be miserable. Yeah. Right? You're happy because you embraced it, and that's what I love about this industry the most is when you're all in and you build a relationship. You've been doing this. You have relationships that you've built because of the industry that they'll last a lifetime.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So, tell me about Nussbaum. Maybe if you can share a little bit about the company's history and what makes them different besides, the working genius, assessments and those sorts of things.
Yeah. How do I do this without sounding too cliche?
So I think some of us know and are familiar enough to know that I think there are really good trucking companies who are really well thought of and have standing in the industry and in society, and then there are those that are like Nussbaum. So I'm helping you with that, at least, because I think that's the perception that a lot of people have.
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate that. I really do. The company's been around since 1945, so we aren't new. It kind of reinvented itself around the turn of the millennia, around 2000. We used to be an LTL, pretty heavy, and really made a switch to truckload around that time. So in some ways, we're a 20, 25-year-old company. In other ways, we're 75 going on 80. So what makes Nussbaum different? If you look at most companies, what's their purpose for being? What's their vision? A lot of times it says something along the lines of excellent on-time service, exceeding in our industry, or being the best we can be. And our vision really is purpose-driven to create positive impact in every interaction. In other words, we think business gives us a platform, gives us a sphere of influence, and it's we want to be good. We think we got the business excellence thing down. That needs to be there. It enables your platform, but it's how we use that platform, and it's how are we making a difference? Or are we being a blessing? And that's really what gets a lot of us up in the morning. It draws a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just there to try to help somebody make a bunch of money. Sure, we try to do that. I'm not trying to be cute with that, but what's the purpose of the company beyond just making money? So, and we really try to focus on that. We talk about it a lot. It draws people. You get people that come with that mindset, and I feel there's more than lip service to that kind of thing around here.
Definitely. And I know just from my interactions with a lot of the folks across the team and being that sort of shining light on a hill, if you will, I see that in it's not just lip service for sure. And it probably attracts people who would gravitate towards that. Is that fair?
Oh yeah. Yep. It definitely does. It definitely does. And we're over 700 employees now. So it's not like everybody drinks the Kool-Aid, but boy, you walk around here and there's a fun vibe.
Mm-hmm.
People it's not just a great work environment where I'm having fun with who I work with. Sure, but that's not the leading thing. That's part of it. It's more I'm part of a bigger purpose. Nussbaum's trying to make a difference. They focus on generous giving, and they talk about it. They're worried about a human growing and being successful, and it creates a fun vibe. So.
Well, and you, as a chief administrative officer, you oversee multiple departments. How do you ensure that that's maintained? Especially as you grow and you surpass 700. That commitment to honesty, integrity, character, those sorts of things.
Yeah. It's been interesting because when I started back at Nussbaum 2007, we were 120, 140 employees, somewhere in there. So that what is that, quintupled or something in my time here. And I remember back in the day, so take a Brent Nussbaum, he touched everything. A Bill Wetstein, he touched everything. We're now to the size where you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you keep the culture in place? How do you retain that as you grow? What we've doubled down on with this, Jeremy, is you're only as good as your next level of leaders and your mid managers. I mean, the company is your manager. And so we invest a lot of time into that group of people. And they don't get their jobs because they're really good at getting stuff done. There's a lot of people that are good at getting stuff done. But we try to put people in those roles who they're most excited when they see their team fly. And so just pouring into that next level of leadership, because you can't touch everything anymore. You're too big to do that. So,
well, you made a comment. First of all, you're only as good as your next level, managers. I really like that quote. I hope maybe that makes it into the title. but I really like that quote. But I think also I was going to say something jokingly, because you said they don't get that job just because, I said I was going to joke something about maybe your mother's network might,
yeah, they need a good mom. Did I mention Mother's Day was recent here?
That's right.
It just happened. So
shout out to mom on the podcast.
That's right.
So, obviously recruiting, this podcast is about, recruiting, about retention, about compliance. These are areas that I think Nussbaum excels at. Can you share maybe some of the innovative ideas that your team has implemented at Nussbaum to attract and retain, best drivers?
Yeah, maybe I'll split that into two categories, kind of the attract and then the retain. So I know the attracting drivers definitely hits your world as well, Jeremy, but we, and you've heard this before, but we try to have a no surprises recruiting philosophy when we're selling people, and this drivers, of course, but this goes for non-drivers as well. We aren't going to sell you on the top 20%. Now, maybe we'll tell you what it is, but we're going to focus on the 40 to 60, kind of in that range around the average. And we're going to tell you the good and the bad, and we're going to put it in writing and put that writing in front of you. And we spend a lot of time on that. So hopefully expectations align. That's a big one. And it's very attractive for drivers to call up and have a recruiter that's actually okay talking them out of the job.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing we try. And then I'm hesitant to share this one because this is a little bit of practical secret sauce, but you can't fake it either. So we focus a lot on our online reviews. We know what our online reputation is. And if our recruiters stay in touch with who they hire, they'll follow up with them. And if we're talking to a happy driver, we'll offer them the review mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can't fake it because they got to do it. And where it becomes more powerful is if somebody does it and somebody else is online and jumps on and says, hey, what that guy said, I experienced the same thing, and you get some real power rolling. So a lot of drivers that come to us do that research, and that reputation has been really helpful.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to hear you say that, because you acknowledge and understand that that is the power. It's one thing for a driver to say, hey, I see these trucks, I'm familiar with the company, but they don't just go apply. They're going to go look you up.
They do.
And if they look you up, that's what you want them to see.
Yep, absolutely. What are they going to find? What are they going to come across? What are you given horror stories that can be put on a trucker forum somewhere, because they're going to find that stuff.
Right. And that's the double-edged sword of social media, of these sort of forums, the internet in general, is everybody has a voice, everybody has a mouthpiece. And I would imagine that 95% of those who contribute to any sort of review is glowing and positive. And then still you're going to have these some, you're like, we tried. We genuinely tried.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You don't win with everybody. And those reviews are out there too. That helps keep it real. And I'd be worried if it was all positive about a company, and not that we're proud of our bad reviews, and sometimes they might be earned. Unfortunately, it's not that, we let people down. And part of the way to be successful is realize that you do that sometimes and figure out how to learn from that, So,
yeah. It's not a Potemkin village, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is reality, and
that's right.
Not everyone's happy. Now, how about retention? Because I think that's also an area where I think I know the company and everybody that I've talked to is super proud of. Is that are there any specific strategies or initiatives that you've implemented that to achieve
Yeah. So I could get program happy talking about this one. So trying to find the big winners so one thing we like to cite is we have a program we call Certified Red. Our trucks are red, it's company color. And the whole idea is in the professional driver world, you get your CDL and no one cares. The other trades, my brother is a plumber. He gets licensed and all that. My dad was a carpenter. He could go journeyman, foreman, superintendent. Trucking, you got a CDL. So we built our own academy, if you will, kind of a technical college type approach. People enroll in it and they can work towards, and it's not a walk in the park and it takes a lot of time, and it's not just a safe mile program. You got to go through education and learning and power through that. But a lot of folks engage with that. I think our turnover among certified red drivers is in the low teens. I think company wide, we're hanging out around 35, 36% this year. 21, 22 were really tough for us. I know you didn't ask numbers, but I feel, to be genuine talking through this, I almost have to put them out. But we were in the low 40s range the last 2 years. That big sign-on bonuses out there really pulled against us. But we're back in the mid 30s range, which is where has been where we've lived for the last decade or so, it seems like.
Well, that's definitely something to be proud of for sure.
So I threw out Certified Red. I want to give one more too that I think is unique to us. We're willing to keep wrestling with, so we're truckload over the road. Most of our drivers are out a week at a time. We have some dedicated, but even our dedicated, they're out a week at a time in a lot of cases. And we're willing to keep wrestling with the difficult parts of the over the road trucking job. The reason I say it that way, we'll always wrestle with home time and pay variability and missing a son's birthday or planning to get home Friday. It ends up being Saturday. And our industry wrestles with that, but we try to not use it as an excuse. And we do things to wrestle with it. So like on the home time piece specifically, our planners have the driver's last 3 weekends and how many hours they had at home when they were at home. So they can see right on there, okay, we had a 58-hour weekend here. We had a 35 here and a 37. Ooh, he's coming off 2 short resets proactively without making him crawl or beg for it. What can I do for him this week? And it puts that information there in front of them. And we have the way we do our planning, we have our driver managers, and there's a fleet planner, and then there's regional planners. So regionals are thinking about the customers, easiest way to say it. Fleet, they're thinking about up to 60 to 70 drivers. And 2 times a year, they reach out to their drivers directly and check in on them and see if they have preferences. No promises, but what are your preferences? And that's right there on the planner as well. So, and it's not just that it's on the planners, it's the fleet planner themselves engaging directly with drivers, and they're planning to the driver. We still have people leave us because we didn't get them home on time or because they need a more predictable weekend. But we're wrestling with that stuff, right? And doing what we can, and I'm not going to just forget about it or that's trucking, that's true. If you don't want trucking, then toughen up, get out of the industry. If you can't, no, that's not the approach we try to have. Now, I could probably be quoted saying that in my weaker moments, but you try to fight through that, right? So,
well, but so sounds like that's, that kind of dovetails into a question about driver satisfaction, because it sounds like by engaging with them in that way and showing that you're listening and that you care and you want to try to help and you're willing to wrestle with this, that there's a sense of like, hey, they care. And that's so much of it. It's not just how much, cents per mile versus this other company, but do I feel like this company I'm working for cares and invests in me? And certainly Certified Red is an example of that, investing in your people. Any other KPIs or anything that you look at to help determine satisfaction?
Yeah. Turnover everybody uses. A unique one to us, we do an annual engagement survey. There's about 70, 75 questions. We have it conducted through a third party. They do phone based, so they call to get these interviews. We had 91% participation across the company. It's a big exercise, so it's once a year. But they do a lot of this surveying, both within and without the industry, in and out. And so they got good benchmarking. And that's a real barometer for us. It's not, you can't hang everything on one KPI or one process, but it is a good indicator for us. And they're calculating overall satisfaction scores. They have ways they calculate engaged employees. And if that starts to drop, we're asking questions, or you can look in areas that it drops. We've been doing it since 2013, about a decade, I think. So we got pretty good history. And then they'll benchmark you. Are you above or below average? This last time they told us, and this is the part where I'm going to brag a little bit, because I feel like I'm bragging on behalf of the Nussbaum reputation isn't from how somebody like me says it should be or want it. It's how the people are experiencing each other. It's how the drivers are experiencing their driver managers. It's how safety had that awkward call. Like, that's where this stuff happens. That's where satisfaction is created. And we have the highest engagement scores they've seen. With the exception, we tied with a small regional hospital in the state of Washington, Prosser Memorial. Shout out to them. I've never met anybody from there, but evidently we share the engagement score high or record with them. So, but that's one barometer for us.
That's a big one, though, to your point, because that's pretty exhaustive, and it's not even just industry specific. So a couple questions left. We have a little bit of time left. So you are an ESOP, right? The company is an ESOP. How does that, foster a sense of ownership and engagement among its employees? And because I assume that's something. Well, first of all, maybe you can share how that came about, why, and then how has that maybe fostered a sense of ownership and engagement?
Yeah, sure. So employee stock ownership plan is what the acronym stands for, right? And so an ESOP is a way to get stock and get cash quickly so you can get rich. No, I'm kidding. No, that's not what it is. And it actually, I've told people, if you go the ESOP route to create your culture, you're going to be disappointed. It matches a culture. I feel it matches it. Like, your culture fits an ESOP. And yeah, of course, once it's up, it's a literal line. If the company does well, it's creating wealth for our people. We're working for each other. It's a literal line that you can use, and that's really cool. And people will start buying into that, but it's not the secret sauce to make people have an ownership mindset. They're going to have that because they believe what the company is about, not because I might have this retirement nest egg 37 years from now. So it's a really cool thing. We have an ESOP committee. We try to really educate on it. We have what we call own it moments, and we definitely play that up. But it builds on existing culture. It doesn't create it. But yeah, we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, well, I think it's intriguing, and I think it's anytime an employee gets to have this sense of ownership, and they're aligned in terms of goals and motivations, expectations, and so on.
Yeah, so it's interesting, Jerry. So if you're going to be an owner, like what do you expect? You expect to be in the know, to be informed and know what's going on. There's all these other things that go with, okay, if I'm going to be treated like an owner, we can't just say, hey, it's an ESOP, you have some shares, you're an owner, but don't ask any awkward questions, okay? Because we're not going to tell you, and we're going to do this behind a curtain over here. And there's more to creating that ownership culture, and we have monthly financial workshops. This is going to shock some people. Well, I know it will, because we've tried it, and people, you do what? And they just can't get comfortable with the idea. We share financials across the company, and the driver facing, we've actually asked them about it. They're like, don't overload us with information. So we do a quarterly where our CFO is walking them through the literal financial results of the company quarterly. And then, yeah, we're very, we try to be open and candid, and all those things are part of the ownership picture as well. And if what you're telling me are company decisions, why we're doing things, how the company's doing, that's going to affect my wealth. They tie together then. So, and one enables the other, right? So.
Well, and that's a great, for our last question here, our deeper dive question, this is kind of fits right into that, because it's a lot of companies pay lip service to culture. I've come to realize that it starts from the top. Do you agree with that? That's the question.
Yes, it does. And my answer there, I'm thinking of, it starts with Brent Nussbaum and what he thinks is important and what he wants us to value. If you caught some hesitation, yes, it does. Culture is not sustained by a couple good leaders. It becomes real from the next level and the next level, and the next level, buying in and living it and breathing it too. Because you can have leaders saying, I want us to behave this way and behave that way. And if your next level aren't, there's no accountability for that. There's no training or resources or assistance in that, then it doesn't matter what the leader thinks. So yes, it's not possible without leadership. It starts there, but it can't be sustained, and it's going to fall apart quickly if you don't have everyone bought in. Everyone's a big word, but I'll stick with it.
Well, as a wise man once said, you're only as good as the next level of managers.
Who is that? Right? That's good. That's a good idea.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jeremy. I appreciate your passion for the industry. Grateful to be able to work with you and your team.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. Enjoyed the conversation, Jeremy.
And thanks for joining me for another episode of Taking the High Road and for spreading the word to your industry peers. We really appreciate it. And remember, you could submit any question or comments, including those which may appear on upcoming deeper dive segments, at podcast@driverreach.com. And don't forget to rate and review Taking the Higher Road, whatever platform you use to listen. Until next time, thank you for taking the higher road.